Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. And as you can see from the topic and title of today's video, today we're going to be discussing Mozilla, and more specifically, how Mozilla is planning on launching their own Mastodon instance in 2023 called Mozilla Social. And the reason why this is funny is because a couple years ago, Mozilla themselves were giving off the impression that decentralized software like Mastodon was bad when the wrong people were using it. Now, the blog post in question that we will be looking at is this one, which you can see here right on the screen, on Distilled, which is also known as blog.mozilla.org in their URL. The article is titled Mozilla to Explore Healthy Social Media Alternative. The first paragraph says, in early 2023, Mozilla will stand up and test a publicly accessible instance in the Fediverse at mozilla.social. We're eager to join the community in growing, experimenting, and learning how we can together solve the technical experience and trustworthiness challenges inherent in hyperscale social systems. Our intention is to contribute to the healthy and sustainable growth of a federated social space that doesn't just operate but thrives on its own terms, independent of profit and control-motivated tech firms. An open, decentralized, and global social service that puts the needs of people first is not only possible, but it's absolutely necessary. Now, this is hilarious, seeing Mozilla saying, oh yeah, we're going to launch our own Mastodon instance called Mozilla.social, and we're all about having an open and free internet, and we're all about decentralization, and blah, 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 blah. It's funny because back in 2020, in their Mozilla blog that's on the URL foundation.mozilla.org, they put an article in 2020 titled Fellow Research, the Decentralized Web of Hate. And so the subtitle of that says, new research from Mozilla fellow Emmy Bevency examines how peer-to-peer technologies are being leveraged to spread toxic content and how some are pushing back. Opening paragraph says, decentralized and open source technologies play an outsized role in keeping the internet healthy, but like any technology, they can also be harnessed by bad actors and put to use, making the internet a less healthy, more dangerous place. And basically, you go through the article, and their main complaint is that when the wrong people run their own open source Mastodon type social media sites, this is bad because, well, they have wrongthink and they have hate speech and toxic content, and this leads to real world violence. But because they're using a decentralized software to make their social media site, they can't be moderated like they can on big tech. And since this article was put out in November 2020, the primary website that they're referring to that uses such technology is Gab, because Gab was at the tail end of what I would consider to be their good period before they came out and started engaging in censorship, and Andrew Torba pulled out the crazy from the locker and showed people who he really was. But Gab back then was, and I think they still are, the biggest Mastodon instance, although they technically aren't part of the Fediverse. But they do use Mastodon as their site script, and they've heavily modified it since they adopted it in July of 2019. But basically, because the folks at Gab are such horrible, toxic people, the open source, decentralized Mastodon software that they used, well, that's bad because they're bad people, and, you know, we can't control them when they run their own social media site, even though we spent years telling them to build their own website if they didn't like being censored by big tech. So, when Gab, for example, had their own use of the Mastodon decentralized software, well, that's bad. It's a decentralized web of hate because we can't control them now that they have their own site built on a decentralized website script. But then, all of a sudden, everyone is starting to use Mastodon to build their own social media site. I mean, Donald Trump's website, Truth Social, also uses the Mastodon script. It's just been modified to make it look very similar to Twitter, or at least an older form of Twitter. There's also Brighteon Social, which is based on Mastodon, or at least a different version of Mastodon. And Post is also based on Mastodon, and Post is even using the look that Truth Social uses. So there are plenty of websites based on the Mastodon script that exist now. And now that evil spaceman Elon Musk is owning Twitter and he's refusing to censor people in the way that woke lefties want him to, and he's making Twitter more of an even playing field than it previously was. Well, this is so horrible, wrong, and evil that now the woke lefties are putting out their own social media websites like Tribal and Hive and building their own Mastodon instances to the point where even Mozilla is getting in on the game. The folks behind the Firefox web browser are now going to get in on the social media game and build their own social media site using the Mastodon script, like so many people are. The second paragraph, though, is very interesting. Our pledge for a healthy internet describes our hopes for the internet and what it can become, a powerful tool for promoting civil discourse and human dignity, one that elevates critical thinking and reasoned argument, that honors shared experience and individual expression, and brings together diverse and global communities to work together for the common good. Today we see the rising tide of the Fediverse through Mastodon, Matrix, PixelFed, and many others as a promising next step in that direction. Together we have an opportunity to apply the lessons of the past to build a social experience for humanity that is healthy, sustainable, and sheltered from the decentralized control of any one entity. Now, I will point out right now, as I just said a little bit ago, the folks at Mozilla and all the big tech people and all the woke lefties, they had absolutely no problem with there being centralized social media sites controlled by any one entity when it was their people running the site. When leftists were controlling Twitter and they were censoring conservatives and Trump supporters and Christians like it was a sport, they had no problem with Twitter being controlled by a centralized system by one entity. But then, as soon as evil spaceman took over Twitter and started to undo some of the censorship stuff they were doing to conservatives and Christians and Trump supporters and other content creators who are basically political dissidents at this point through their content. Well, all of a sudden, oh, evil spaceman is so bad. How dare he change Twitter from being a total hellhole and totally censorious. And now, all of a sudden, these people care about freedom of speech and having a decentralized system where no one entity controls everything, and all of a sudden they're all about individual expression and diverse thought and working together for the common good, and suddenly they like decentralized social media site scripts like Mastodon, even though they've been condemning such things for years. Suddenly it's all good, it's all great, and we are all jumping in on it because evil spaceman took over Twitter. And in the last paragraph, this is what Mozilla says. Now is the time, as we're living through the consequences of 20 years of centralized corporate-controlled social media with a small oligopoly of large tech firms tightening their grip on the public square. In private hands, our choice is limited, toxicity is rewarded, rage is called engagement, public trust is corroded, and basic human decency is often an afterthought. Getting from the internet we have to the internet we want will be a heavy lift, requiring significant investment in scalable, human-centered solutions for user and community safety, product experience, and sustainability. These are all big challenges, and there's a lot we need to learn on the road ahead, so let's get moving. I love how this last paragraph starts. We've lived through the consequences of 20 years of centralized corporate-controlled social media with a small oligopoly of large tech firms controlling the public square, essentially. Guess what? Mozilla and all these woke lefties and Democrats had no problem with any of this when it was their people controlling these tech firms and controlling the public square through these big tech social media sites. They had no problem with any of this when they were the ones running it. But now, all of a sudden, someone who isn't like them and actually believes in an even playing field where both sides of a discussion, at least in theory, should be allowed to be discussed and people should be able to find that other side if they want to go looking for it. Well, suddenly that's just, oh, that's crazy. Oh, we can't have this one guy controlling all of our speech on one website. Oh, no, we can't have a privately owned company having this much control over the public square. No, 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 no. We need to make decentralized social media sites that connect with each other so that way we can all connect with each other like before, but we all control our little spaces and so we don't have to worry about, stuff we don't like showing up in our space. It's just so hilarious. So hilarious to see the woke lefties embracing open source technology now that evil spaceman, aka Elon Musk, runs Twitter. It's just absolutely amazing to see that happen. Gee, I wonder what would happen if someone like Elon Musk took over YouTube. Oh my gosh, would everyone start making their own video sites or start making their own knockoffs of like NewTube or YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey? I mean, good Lord, what would happen then? Now, I don't have any websites based on like Mastodon or Matrix or PeerTube or anything like that, but I myself run my own social media sites that are based on open source decentralized projects. For example, I have Creation Social, which is my open source alt tech alternative to Facebook, and Gab, which is run on the open source social network script. And I have my own YouTube alternative called Quarter, which is an open source alt tech alternative to YouTube, as well as lying grifter sites in the alt tech world. And it's run on the A Video project, which is an open source video sharing site website script that has a lot of features and functionality to it, enough to actually rival YouTube, including offering features that YouTube doesn't, that my site, thanks to A Video, does. So if you're all into open source decentralized websites that aren't controlled by, some corporate entity or by some billionaire, and you want to have a social media experience where you can say and do whatever you want without fear of being censored on the internet, I have two websites for you that you can do that on. I have Creation Social, and I have Quarter if you're into making video content or live streaming. So be sure to join Creation Social and Quarter today if you want freedom of speech on a decentralized open source social media website or video sharing site.